markets, speculation, and risk. This is the Chat with Traders podcast, hosted by Aaron Fifield.
Ladies and gents, welcome to Chat with Traders podcast. This episode, it's a little experimental. It takes on a slightly different format to normal. I'll explain. This episode is essentially a response to an email which I received from a listener a little while ago. I read the email out in full during this episode, but just to summarize right now, this gentleman is 38 years old with a full-time job in banking. His wife is currently studying and he has 3 kids. He also has the goal to transition out of his current career into full-time trading. But as I just mentioned, he has a family who are dependent on his income. And that's the part he has questions about. So I asked my buddy Alex, aka @TaggerTrades on Twitter, if he'd be willing to join me for this episode and share his thoughts. Alex is a full-time day trader who has developed skill for trading long-side momentum in US equities. He's also appeared previously on episodes 119 and episode 157. And it would be well worth your time to go back and listen to those if you haven't already. Now, just a couple of things to preface this episode. Given the subject, this episode is targeted towards entry-level traders. The more advanced traders out there, you're probably not going to get much useful from this one. And, while listening back to this episode, I actually thought of a bunch of other things we probably could have mentioned, but I guess the main points we do address were those specifically asked about in the email. You can also find a key point summary of what we discussed in the show notes at chatwithtraders.com/176. And if you'd be interested to hear more episodes like this one, with a similar format answering listener questions, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Maybe hit me up on Twitter at chatwithtraders. Finally, the content of this episode is not to be treated as advice. These are general thoughts only, and you are responsible for your own decisions. Here we go, folks. Please welcome, once again, Alex. How you been, man? We haven't spoken in a little while.
I know. I've been in the weeds with a couple kiddos now, so I've been kind of radio silence trying to manage everything, but been pretty good.
Yeah, it seems like each time we talk, you have another kid.
I know, no more. I'm like about to go in for the old snip, like a pound dog. But after 2, I'm like, this is hard enough, but it's fun. I'm not talking bad about them, but yeah, no more kids for my collection. We're done.
Okay. How old is the youngest one?
The youngest is 3 months old.
Oh, okay. 3 months.
3 months and then a year and a half. So we got 2 under 2, which is basically everyone thinks we're fucking crazy, which we kind of are, but
yeah,
whatever. We're done.
I remember last time we spoke, I don't know when that was, when we did the last podcast. But
I feel like it's been almost like every 12 months, give or take, pretty close.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were telling me you were having a bit of sleep deprivation.
Oh, yeah, big time. Our youngest just started sleeping through the night like last week. And I keep waking up every morning and being like, oh, I'm going to get caught up in sleep. And hasn't quite happened yet, but we're close. I'm going on vacation tomorrow night for 5 days, and without the kids, without the wife. It's a bachelor party. So I'm like, I'm going to sleep so damn much, but let's be honest, I'm probably not.
Full on, man. Where are you going?
Yeah. We're going to Colorado in the mountains, and we're going to do some fly fishing and some brewery stuff, and it's much better than the typical Vegas, at least United States Vegas bachelor party. It won't be like that, but
that'll be really cool, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Nice little unwind. I've been going hardcore for a while, so I'm ready for a little break.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So how's trading been this year? I mean, what are we, like, dude, 5 months in now?
What's up? Yeah, we're about close to almost done with May. I've been on a heater since like last October, coming into May. Just pretty consistent, pretty awesome. I mean, I don't really want to talk about it on the podcast money wise specifically, because I'm trying to kind of stay away from that, but I took my biggest intraday or biggest daily loss ever today at $8,200. So market's kind of telling me to, and I took I had an intraday drawdown of about $16,000 last week. And it was an illiquid stock that I got too big in, and I ended up wiggling my way out for like a $2,500 loss. Should have taken the sign, but I kept pressing, and I fudged up today. But looking forward to the vacation. I think I just need a little break.
Wow. Okay. So you probably didn't really want to talk to me today.
No, I mean, no. You know what? I knew it was coming. Let's be honest. Like, it happens, right? It's part of trading. So. I've been going hot, trying to press size, and then I didn't see the signs to back off, and I kept pressing, and clearly it's just signs to say I need to back off, and I didn't. I'm still up on the month, so whatever. But yeah, I mean, I knew it was coming.
Well, that's nice to hear you've had a good start this year.
Yeah.
Why do you think you had that biggest loss today? Do you think it's purely just a factor that you've been trading a bit bigger lately, or
yeah, 100%. I looked at it over again. I looked at it 4, 5, 10 times a day. It was valid. I just took way too much size, and the market's not risk on right now. So I need to be able to get better at identifying, like, okay, I'm allowed to size up. Like I've earned it, but it's just not the time to size up. And that's kind of where I screwed up. I put on a lot of size. The liquidity wasn't there. Tried to start selling some, and then it just started. Every time I was selling, it was like, they knew they had me or somebody on the other end. So they just kept pulling it in there. I couldn't get out. So the trade was valid. I just couldn't get out where I wanted to. So if it was like 2 months ago when I took that much size, I probably would have been a huge win. I've had plenty of wins that are much bigger than that, but it just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Oh, expansion, eh?
Yeah.
It's just what happens,
Yeah. I mean, it's a part of the game, right? I avoided it for a long, I only had 2 losing days coming into this month, and like the biggest loser was like $150 in a day. And I'd been running really hot, not taking losses, and being able to wiggle out of everything, and couldn't wiggle out of it. And I wiggled out last week, right? So I think that also, perfect storm, wiggled out, thought I could wiggle out today, and I couldn't. So just telling me to, all right, let's go back into cut size, grind back, and then we'll push when it's time to push.
Right. And what have you been trading lately? Like, what's been hot?
Small caps. That's what came into the year really hot. Into last year, obviously, we shit the bed in the markets, but the bounce back, there's a lot of risk on. It's been pretty good, but right now I think we're kind of in like I bet we're probably going to chop through this whole summer and just kind of not do much. So
I remember last time we did the podcast, it was just coming off the back of the sort of the crypto bubble.
Yeah.
And I remember you'd been talking about trading a lot of the crypto sort of related stocks. How have they been going lately?
They follow directly with crypto. So they hadn't been doing shit till probably, I don't know, what was it, like a month ago when we started perking off 3,000 on Bitcoin. And I got some pretty good trades off of them, but I just think that, everyone's so butthurt probably from losing a while back that no one's being really aggressive with crypto right now. At least from what I can tell. I'm sure if you're actually trading the coin, there's a lot of volatility and stuff, but when that presents itself, it's a green light go. It just hasn't had a lot of the momentum that followed through into the actual stocks this year.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool, man. Well, let's get into it. So, the format of this podcast, I guess, is going to be a little bit different because
right.
I guess it's not so much about you or myself. It's really about, well, let me just get right to it. I received an email a couple months ago, recently, and it just kind of stood out to me. And I thought, this is a really good email. It's really nicely written. It's very genuine, and I feel as though it's quite relatable to a lot of people who probably listen to this podcast. And this person was asking a question, and instead of just giving an email response, which I'm often pressed for time, so my responses are normally quite rushed, I felt as those deserved a little more attention. And I thought that you'd be a great person to answer this question because it's very fitting. So let me just read through this email. It'll take me about a minute or two. And then I reckon we break it down a bit. and kind of flesh out the different parts to it and go from there. So the email says, "Hi Aaron, hope this email finds you well. I'm sure you are no stranger to constant messages of thanks for all your terrific content, but I wanted to chime in as your podcast has truly been a turning point in my life. At 38, a father to 3 young children and stuck in a career in banking, your step-by-step interviews with industry leaders has inspired me to actively pursue my passion for trading. More importantly, though, your interviews have provided me with key directions and access to great minds and advice that I otherwise wouldn't be able to access. So thank you. In a bid to actually move out of my current and long-term banking role, could you point me in the right direction? I would absolutely love to make the transition this year. However, we have a young family and my wife is still completing her degree and training. As such, my salary is our lifeline. In between studying for a Master's of Applied Finance, I'm on the podcast Spark Trial platform, reading Bella's One Good Trade and the Playbook and your own ebook, Grow or Die. But I'd be forever grateful if you could recommend some actual steps that I could take to get the knowledge behind me and start doing the trades. I also reached out to others that you have showcased and who fill my Twitter feeds. I was seeking mentorship and hoping to learn through an apprenticeship, but no luck, and even told that this was a myth, sadly. In your opinion, do you think that with little startup capital, moving from my current position in commercial lending to a prop firm to learn as a graduate would be a useful move? And in doing so, are you in the know to recommend any at all? Thank you for taking the time to read this, Aaron. I know how insanely busy you must get, and I really appreciate any advice you can throw my way. Look forward to meeting you in the flesh at a trade catch-up one day also. And we'll leave the gentleman's name anonymous. So there it is. That's the email. Like I mentioned, I think you'd be a great person to speak to this, Alex. So I've kind of looked over this email last night before we got on this call and sort of broken it down into a few different parts. I think that's probably the right way to go about it. So what this person is kind of looking for is some ultimately, how can they get out of their full-time job and go and transition into full-time trading? It does sound as though this person doesn't really have a lot of trading experience, like they're quite new to it all. I sort of get the impression they maybe haven't taken too many actual trades, but certainly very interested in it and would like to leave a banking career for a full-time trading career. So they asked for some actual steps, and I quote here, actual steps to get the knowledge behind me to start doing the trades. What that kind of says to me is, what steps can they take to become profitable? So let's just start right there. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
The way it's going to work and the steps are going to be different for really everyone, depending on so many different factors. So there's a lot to look into it. But just as the simple of going from not taking a lot of trades to becoming potentially profitable, it really comes down to trading, right? I mean, it's as simple kind of as that. You're going to have to. It's a trial and error, and you've got to learn a lot. As far as are there specific steps you can take becoming a profitable trader? I think a lot of it's in the front end of building a really good foundation. If you're gonna be, I know he said he was using Spark. I don't know if they have a demo platform, and there's a lot of debate between going demo to live trading. But it really for demo, I would think that you kind of it's how you would learn your platform. But as far as actually starting trading, start trading really small, and then build processes to protect yourself. So kind of setting loss limits, things like that. But what I think would be best for this person that's sending an email is to start taking trades and tracking the results and seeing, does he have anything? Does what he's thinking about, maybe if he's what kind of stocks these are, or options or futures, or planning on trade and see if there's any kind of click there. Is there any kind of flow? And really try to find something that suits you. But as simplifying into steps, it's so broad, and everything you trade is going to be so specific. But yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things I was going to say to you is, I know people like to think about things in steps,
right?
And it kind of makes for good articles online and that type of thing. It's a nice heading that makes people want to click. But in some ways, I kind of wonder if trading can actually be simplified enough to be broken down into steps. Like, is there such a thing as a step-by-step process for how to become a profitable trader? Because, one of the things you just said there, a lot of it is trial and error, especially up front. One of the things, I guess, it kind of sounds as though this person might be asking about is, what type of things should they be trying to learn about? Like, what should they be trying to work on?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I think everyone thinks of how much they make, right? That's pretty much why anybody gets into trading is, they see profits or other people making a lot and they think, how can I make a lot? But really, whenever we're starting, it's get in there, take a lot of trades, and just really manage risk. Know exactly what you're willing to risk on all of your beginning trades. Trade like as small as you possibly can. 1 share, 10 shares, whatever, just to get the feel going, get those emotions kind of practiced, and be in the market and see how it feels and how it moves and how it reacts. But what I would say is, off the bat, really try to set up a foundation to avoid the big blowups. And with time, and once you take enough trades, pretty much anybody you talk to knows that you see all the trades and you can see what's going wrong, and you can see what's going right. And it's at least gives you somewhere to start, because I think most people who start trading, including myself, when I jumped in full time, I didn't know much, but you have to throw yourself in there and learn. It's really, you can read a book. You can, like you said, you can see a site that has, step-by-step checklists, but it really depends on your personality. There's so many different aspects that it's not as clean cut as that. And, there are really good books out there that I, have a couple on my blog, and I know we spoke last time and you asked what I read and my mind went blank. But, in my opinion, the further you look back, something like Trade Your Way to Financial Freedom, I think it was by Tharp. It does kind of have a step-by-step of what you should do, but it's kind of geared towards swing trading, and it doesn't really go into a lot of day trading, but it doesn't matter. All the foundation's the same.
Well, what do you think about someone who's in this particular situation? Like he says, he's about 38, has a wife, 3 kids. I don't know if he says he has a mortgage, but he obviously has responsibilities, and pretty much his salary is supporting the whole family at this point in time.
Yeah. So there wasn't enough information to make you can make the jump. You have it all lined up right there.
But do you think someone in this situation is probably best to begin trying to swing trade? Because because he says he's been experimenting with Spark. So Spark is a platform for viewing Australian equities.
Okay.
Which I know you already know that. I'm just pointing that out for the listeners. I take it that he's focused on Australian equities, which probably means he's living in Australia and he has a day job. So that makes it difficult to day trade. Do you think someone like this should maybe spend their time and effort on more of a swing trading approach?
Definitely. While they're working full time, I would say swing trade. That way you can at least get a feel to start to trade. There's no way you can manage a day trade while you're working a full-time job. It just doesn't work properly. You can't scale that. But you can get practice by swing trading. And it's kind of like, the hot thing to talk about right now is like a side hustle, right? Everyone talking about starting up side hustles. Well, this can kind of be a side hustle where you can practice, see if you can at least build some confidence, some momentum before you make the full-on jump. Because I've kind of seen where I made the jump when I was 24 and I didn't have kids and I really didn't have a lot to worry about. but I also know where he is now that I have 2 kids. It's much different just to say, yeah, man, just jump. You'll figure it out. And if you don't, what's the worst that can happen? Well, unfortunately, you have a family, you need to be somewhat responsible for that. So, do you have any savings? Do you have like a safety net built in there? If you were to jump in full time, could you live without an income for 6 months? That would be really important, because that is if you want to make the jump directly from working to full time trading. Now, if you want to work on the side, it frees you up so much to take losses, and it's not going to wreck you because you still have your full time income, and then you can really work from there and kind of and build your base, your foundation, and your knowledge while you're working.
What are your views, because you're someone who's an active day trader, what are your views on swing trading as an approach to trading? Like, obviously there's the pros and the cons if you want to compare it next to day trading. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel as though it's a valid sort of way to learn about how you can make money as a trader?
Oh, 100%. That's how I started trading, was swing trading. When I was working full time, I was swing trading. When I got into trading full time, my plan was to be a swing trader. It did not work out for me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. The reason being is I am such a cautious person that holding positions overnight, I would just lose sleep. I would be on the message boards all night and checking things out. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's just the way I personally am. So I made the transition over day trading. But no, swing trading is completely valid. I'm sure people probably do way better at trading via swing trading than I do. But no, it's a good way to start. But at the same time, if I could go back in time, I would have tried to focus on day trading earlier, just because that's where I ended up and that's what worked. But for some people, swing trading will work if you're more of a person who doesn't like to be in the fast pace and the rush and the news and everything in the short term matters. Then you can widen your time frame out, be a swing trader. Don't worry so much about the small moves each direction. You're looking for a bigger target, and that's your mindset. That's your mind frame.
What do you think? Now, I know you don't do much swing trading nowadays. Are you always flat at the end of each day?
I am, yes.
Okay. So let's just say this person is going to consider swing trading. What do you think might be some good skills for them to try and develop? Like, what sort of things should they be looking for? Now, I'm not saying, maybe should is the wrong word, but what are some ideas?
Yeah. So the thing that I've kind of, a light bulb that's gone off at some point in my career was that things that have worked for, hundreds of years will probably continue to work. So certain patterns that have worked. And I know we've talked about them in the past, and kind of what I look for as a long bias trader, things like flags and pennants and certain setups that happen on all different time frames. A flag can happen in a 1 minute, a 5 minute, an hour, daily, a weekly. They happen in all different time frames. So really starting to learn how to spot patterns. That is, if you are going to be a technical trader, which I assume probably most people, or according to what this person's talking about, if he's talking about a prop shop, it's usually technical trading. So learning patterns. And then, really important is as simple as just support and resistance. Where's support? Where's resistance? Once you can just start creating a catalog of seeing how support and resistance works, it's kind of the foundation of trading. It's built, pretty much every strategy is built around that. So learning where support is, that way you can start managing risk. And then once you learn where resistance is, you can start learning how to sell better and better exits. But it's just going to take a lot of repetition, a lot of seeing the patterns over and over and over again and how they play out. That's how I would recommend for somebody with swing trading or day trading or whatever you want to trade, or however style is really start with the basics and look back to what's worked for a long time. Because we've seen these things play out for, as long as we've had charts.
Yeah. And what would be your suggestions around sort of how many things you try to focus on at a given time? And when I say things, I guess I'm talking more about, if you want to use the term setups, like how many setups should you focus on at any given time as maybe someone who's a swing trader? So as a swing trader, you've got to bear in mind that you're probably going to you're going to be trading less frequently, typically, than an intraday trader.
Yeah. So this is something that I've talked about with other traders that have made it longer term, or seen guys that have been consistent or lasted for a long time. Pretty much across the board, everybody recommends finding your one setup in the beginning. People try to create these massive playbooks before they're even consistent. And that's really not helpful at all, because you're just shooting your bullets everywhere. It's hard to track. It's hard to learn when you're just trying so many different things. Pick a pattern, something that has worked over time, that consistently works. A lot of it's about trust. You have to trust these patterns. You have to have been in them. You have to see how they play out. Find one thing that you can get really consistent with, and then use that to build off of. I didn't do that, unfortunately, for the first probably year or two. I was all over the place shooting everything, and that held me back. But once I kind of found my bread and butter, my thing that I could wake up, and every time I thought, okay, at least I had a shot. Was it going to be a winner? Not always, but I had something to build off of. Start with one thing, and as soon as you get good at it, you can either just try to get amazing at it and focus on that one thing, which you see a lot of really good traders do. One pattern that they are just amazing at, inside and out. I mean, heck, you got some guys that only trade one stock or one futures contract, and they know that inside and out. But then the guys that can do it all, that can long, short, options, futures, and do it all. Now, they more than likely started with one thing and started building from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, man. Now, let me just throw out an idea. If this person is interested in day trading or trading more actively, how about trading the crypto market? Because I've often suggested this to some people who say they'd like to day trade, but they have a day job and it kind of rules that out. I feel as though the crypto market could be a fairly good learning ground for someone, because it's easy enough to access. You can start with small amounts of capital, and there's quite a bit of volatility, especially at the moment. And that it trades 24/7. So right. You can, maybe I don't really know what it like if there are active hours in crypto, if it sort of dies off between certain times or what, but maybe if you have a day job, you can come home at night and for 3 hours between this time and this time, you can trade crypto, or I don't know. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, it would be something kind of similar like trading futures, which are 24 hours. They definitely have, and I have never personally traded crypto itself. I've traded the equities that are related to crypto in the U.S. market. But when you look at a crypto chart, you can tell that there are periods where different countries are mainly awake, that there's a lot of volatility. So no, I see what you're saying, because you could go to work and then come home and then practice day trading on an instrument that maybe has a lot of volatility or liquidity at the time. Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about that, but no, it sounds like a valid idea. That is, if you want to get in the thicks of it all and really watch order flow and see how things move on shorter time frames. Yeah, finding something that and I know there's other people that live in other countries that after they get done. I know some Aussie traders that I've seen on Twitter that they trade the U.S. markets whenever they're not working. So you could also look at something like that where you can trade away from work and treat it like a real job.
Yeah, that's tough. I got mad respect for anyone who's in Australia trading the US market, because those hours are not friendly.
Yeah, or your buddy Nick, who you've had on the podcast before. He lived in the States and traded Aussie markets.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, it's doable. Would I want to do it? Hell no. But if that's what it takes and you really want it and you want to get the practice in, then, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Mm. Now, one part from this email, which I think we should zoom in on, he said something about, let me pull up the email. I would absolutely love to make the transition this year. Well, we're currently in May. Mm-hmm. So what's that? There's about 7 months left of this year. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's a little bit naive.
I mean, look, anything's possible. We've seen the outliers out there, so I don't want to say it's not possible, but you're just giving yourself such a low runway that to get it figured out, if you've got one bullet to give it a shot, I would, knowing what it's like to have a family, I would make sure I was more prepared before I made the jump. But it's not to say that he couldn't just bust his ass and get it all figured out, which is possible. But realistically, I don't know what the actual numbers are. I know we've seen them all thrown out that like 90% of traders don't make it for past 3 years or something like that. What can you do to not be in that 90%?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if you can put like a time frame on it like that. Like, I don't know if you can set a time frame for yourself. Like, I need to transition this year, so I've got 7 months to do this. I think everyone's just different. I know it sounds really cliche, but it's just the way it is. I think, you know, it'll happen for you when it happens, almost.
I kind of think of it like a lot of people always ask, when do I size up for people that are trading? When do I size up? How do I size up? And the one thing that I've kind of spoken with other people and I've thought about before, it's not really, it's not like really there's just like a time frame. Like you can't say like 6 months, kind of like he's saying. You have to earn it. You have to, have proven consistency. You have to know what you're doing before you can up your size. And I'm assuming it probably translates to making the jump. You should feel comfortable and confident before you make that move. And if you're not comfortable and confident, I probably would bet that your trading will reflect that.
Yeah. He also pointed out in his email that someone had said to him that it was a myth that he'd be able to do this. I don't know if myth is maybe the wrong word, but meaning that the likelihood of him being able to sort of leave his current situation, or not leave his entire situation, but leave his current job and transition to full-time trading at 38 with kids, who's dependent on his salary, etc. How realistic do you think it is that, this person may be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the myth more or less is the fact that the lovely Twitter and all sorts of marketing makes you think that you can just buy a system and it'll work, or something. There's a simple way to make it work. When the fact is it's not a simple way, but it's possible. So I don't want to say it's a myth, being able to make it, but it takes a lot of hard work. And like anything, I mean, any business you start, it's not just going to just take off right away. It's anything that you do, any sport you start, anything you start, it's possible. If I start playing golf tomorrow, am I going to be a pro, in a year? Probably not. Could I? Maybe. So yeah, I would say making it is not a myth. It's just very difficult. And obviously the numbers show that.
Mm. And the other thing he pointed out as well through the email was, by the sounds of it, he'd like to find a mentor of some sort. He said even learning through an apprenticeship. Well, an apprenticeship, explicitly, doesn't exist in trading. I guess you sort of learn through different means. But what would you say to someone who's trying to seek out a mentor? I mean, you didn't really have a mentor as such, did you?
No, I didn't. But I wish I did. It probably would have cut the learning curve down a lot. I've spoken with guys who had true mentors. Now, you've got to understand that there's air quotes mentorship and there's mentorship. There's something where you can pay a fee and be mentored with 100 to 200 to 300 other people, but you're not really getting personalized help, which is where it really benefits. But I have heard of specific cases where people have gotten mentored right from the get-go, and it helps phenomenally. Either from a friend or family or something. I didn't even know anybody personally who traded before I started, so that really wasn't an option for me. But I mean, I'm sure if you look hard enough in your network, there's maybe somebody out there who's traded, or hell, who's even given it a shot and it didn't work, and they can tell you what doesn't work, maybe. But I mean, it's tricky to find good mentorship, but I imagine if you could find it, it would be extremely valuable. But you needed it to be more of like one-on-one to like maximum 1-on-4, where it's very true mentorship.
Yeah, and I would just like to emphasize the point you made there. I mean, there is a big difference between mentorship when you're paying for a product, I guess it's not a product, a service online, and in comparison to like a true mentorship relationship.
Oh yeah. Every time I see it, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit. Some of the marketing for it, because it's like you can't help that many people really well. And if you're going to try to be a mentor and focus on somebody, that one person. I mean, I don't even have it in me. I don't have enough time in my life to mentor a single person because I've got enough going on with trading, family, friends, and whatnot. So to find somebody who can really dedicate time would be very valuable, but just be very cautious about that, I would say.
I think what's also really valuable is just getting like some buddies who are into trading as well. Like I've mates here who, we catch up, go grab a burger and drink, one night during the week or something like that. Like that sort of thing. And, we just talk about trading and whatnot. Like that sort of thing is so helpful. And I think a lot of people get caught up on this idea of having to find a quote unquote mentor, which is very difficult. Not saying it can't be done, but it is difficult because it's really a big ask on your part when you're asking someone to mentor you. Where it's much easier to connect with a few other people who trade, and just speak to those people on a regular basis, whether that's once a week, once a fortnight, even once a month. I think you'll gain a lot from that. And it'll sort of more of a two-way thing. These people don't have to be gun traders, but just people who are, good thinkers, who are, actively trading, have a passion for it, very interested in it, and are keen to develop and get better. From having sort of a small circle of other traders who are doing that, and they don't even have to trade the same products as you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I 100% agree with that right there. They don't have to trade the same products. You have to trade because it's a mindset, and it's only people who have actually done it and done it quite a bit understand it. But it's like you said, it's so great to have the person you can reach out to when you take a big loss and you're trying to explain it and you bounce ideas back and forth and you figure out, oh, well, this is what I did wrong. It's probably more than I think a mentorship would, because somebody who's way above you is trying to teach you, and they may have some, I don't know. It's probably hard to imagine what somebody who doesn't know what they know. That didn't really make sense, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, there are people that I do talk to probably weekly, if not more often. But whenever a big trade happens or a big loser happens, that I can message them right away and we'll talk about it and high five or be sad or whatever because my neighbor's not going to get it, or my best friend who's maybe has a few indexes or something like that isn't going to get, the ups and downs and the beat downs and the bad beats, I guess you could say, and things like that. I think it's huge. It would be very helpful. And I didn't have that early on because everyone that I was friends with, I would talk to for a few months and then they would disappear, likely blowing up. But it was still good to talk in the beginning, just to know that we're not all crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's half of it. So I think what we just spoke about there, that was quite important. Don't get too caught up on trying to find a mentor right now. I think there's more value, or maybe I shouldn't say more value, but just as much value in trying to get a couple buddies who are into trading as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys can grow together. And if you got like 3 or 4 guys who really want it, I mean, that could be a pretty, probably pretty helpful.
Yeah, it's pretty motivating. I mean, you can all kind of feed off each other's energy.
Yep, totally.
And I guess the final part of this email, leading on from the mentorship, let me just read out what he said here. In your opinion, do you think that with little startup capital, moving from my current position in commercial lending to a prop firm to learn as a graduate would be a useful move? And in doing so, are you in the know to recommend any at all? So I'd prefer not to recommend any specific prop firms, just on the record. But I don't know. I have a couple thoughts on this. I don't know if you want to maybe start, Alex.
I didn't go that route, but it doesn't mean it's not the good route to go. when I started, I honestly didn't even know what prop shops were. So, golf clap to that guy. He's more aware of that than I was. I think if you can get with a good firm, and not recommending any, I've never actually seen any P&Ls legitimate, so I can't verify. But I think if you can get in with a good firm, now that's kind of maybe where you're talking mentorship there, where you have a group of people that are financially tied together, and them helping you out helps their bottom line, and that's probably somebody who's going to help you, right? But I remember the last conversation, I think you had a podcast a few weeks ago with somebody down in Austin who said even at their firm, the retention rate's like 13%.
Yep.
So it's not like that being in a prop firm is just going to solve all the problems and you should just jump ship and go over there. It's still going to be hard as hell. But yeah, I mean, sitting down with a group of people that are trading actively and getting in the weeds with them, that I could imagine being pretty helpful. And maybe if I could have done that earlier, it would have been nice. But at this point now, I enjoy where I am. I enjoy learning by myself. But if you're more of a group person, I could see that being very helpful.
Yeah. Now, something I would like to point out, and I guess it's a little bit of a side note, but I think it's well worth mentioning because a lot of people are unaware of this. I kind of categorize prop firms as two different types of prop firms. Okay, so there's prop firms where you come in and you trade your own account, you trade your own book, the firm's capital, but you are responsible for your own P&L. And most of those firms, they don't pay a salary, and you simply get paid when you make money. You take a split of your P&L. If you lose money, then you're losing the firm's capital and you don't get paid. You've got to get yourself out of that hole into the green, and then when you take you want to withdraw, you take a percentage, you take your split of the P&L that you've earned, and the firm keeps the other part for putting up the capital, the infrastructure, technology, etc. So that's one type of prop firm. And then there's also another type of firm. These firms operate what I would call more in teams. So, for example, I've had a couple members from DRW on the podcast in the past. You've got your Virtues, Susquehanna, those sorts of firms. There's multiple teams within this firm, and they trade. Most of them get paid a salary and a bonus. But most of those firms are also quite tech heavy.
Kind of like black box style trading?
Yeah, maybe not strictly black box, maybe some gray box, but a lot of them sort of are quite dependent on technology, like sort of quant-driven stuff. They do still have traders though. Yeah, I just think it's important that people realize there are two different types of firms out there, because I think some people think when there's a prop firm, that purely means the only option is that you get a split of your P&L and there's no salary. There is also the other option where you're on a salary and then you get a bonus, I don't know when that is, every 6 months or end of the year, based on how your team performed. Now, your team might consist of some developers, some researchers, some traders, a quant, someone who specializes in networking, that sort of thing. Those jobs are typically, I guess, harder to get and require you to have some sort of, depend on what the role is, require you to have a master's degree in something or other, or some higher education in specific things. Whereas I guess traditional prop trading is probably, there's the barrier to entry is a little bit lower. But there's also typically no salary that comes with that. So anyway, a bit of a tangent, but going back to the question, I think that's one thing you have to be very mindful of, is that going by what is said in this email, I feel as though this person is probably more thinking about traditional prop trading. I think they have to be aware that they would likely not have a salary. So having little startup capital, now I don't know what little startup capital means, but typically a prop firm is not going to require you to put up your own money. And I'd be a little bit cautious of any firm which does require you to put up your own money. So I don't really know how that plays into this question. I would more say that little startup capital you should more be talking about having enough savings to support yourself while you're learning and trying to actually become consistent and actually be able to make money as a trader.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you could either use that capital to trade your own book with, and then, hopefully you still have it at the end, or yeah, you could use that as your actual savings, what you live off of while you work for a prop firm and work your way through the likely or initial drawdown until you work your way out.
I think one other thing is that try and do a little bit of research, because the culture in prop firms, I think, varies quite a lot as well. Some are very focused on development. Some you're almost left to your own devices a little bit. You're given the capital and the buying power, the limits you need, and then it's sort of up to you to work it out. So yeah, the culture does vary quite a bit from firm to firm. And I think a lot of people are probably scared to do this, but I think it's a very simple thing that you can do, is just pick up the phone and call one of these firms. If you're just considering, if you think it would be beneficial for you to get into a firm and you'd like to explore that option, just pick up the phone and make that call and try and speak to someone. I remember when I was working at the firm, we'd occasionally get calls like that. Most of them I would deal with. And I was always willing to help someone on the phone when they called up and sort of point them in the right direction and, potentially speak with them, bring them in, see if they'd be a good fit or not. And maybe sort of give some suggestions on where to go. So I feel as though it shows initiative and it shows that you're actually making an effort, and it kind of separates you from, I guess, most other people who might just send in an email. Like, there's nothing wrong with sending an email, but some of these firms might get quite a lot of emails and yours might get missed. So at least just pick up the phone, have a conversation with someone, see what sort of people they're looking for, what skills they require, who they're looking for, and try and, if it sounds like you may have some of that, then, try and meet with them. I don't think it should be as daunting as what some people perhaps make it out to be.
Yeah, I mean, for this reader, he's really got two options: go out on his own, or go the prop route. And in his situation, it seems like if he really wants it and he wants to do it, and he wants to do it in 7 months, that potentially his best bet is to do the research and find a firm he'd be happy with, and try everything he can to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree totally.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I think we've addressed most of the points in that email, and we've gone for about 50 minutes. So I thought this would be like a short 30-minute podcast.
I think we both thought that initially, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's leave it there, and hopefully there's been some good insights from what we've discussed. Hopefully this has been helpful to this particular listener who sent in the email, and anyone else who might be in that situation. Again, this is not to be treated as advice. It's just general.
Oh yeah, no advice from me.
General thoughts. Yeah. Let's call it that.
Yeah, perfect.
So obviously you're responsible for your own decisions. So don't forget that. Alex, if someone wants to follow you, you are on Twitter. Do you want to share your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's Tagger Trades, TAGR Trades. I'm, like I said earlier, got 2 kids right now, so I haven't been very active. But maybe I will again in the future. Who knows?
No pressure, man. No pressure. We got a 3rd podcast out of you, so we're grateful.
Yeah, it's our every year, our annual podcast.
Yeah, put it in the calendar.
Cool.
And I will also mention, if you want to hear more from Alex, check out episodes 117 and 157. Really great episodes. I highly recommend. You'll learn a lot from those. Alex, I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you for fitting it in. I know you got a busy schedule, so we do appreciate it.
Well, I hope it helps, and I'll talk to you in a year.
Thanks, man.
All right, see you, Aaron.
You've reached the end of this episode of Chat with Traders. But rest assured, there are more episodes loaded with real market insight and zero hype on the way soon. So to stay updated with each great new release, subscribe to the podcast in iTunes. And we'd love it if you'd leave a rating and review. We'll catch you next time on Chat with Traders.